All right, it is 4 o'clock in the UK, and I want to just welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us today. My name is Patrick Neary. I'm the Business Development Director at DWS. I have global responsibility for our sales, marketing, and channel efforts. And I'm delighted to have you on with us today and to spend a bit of time talking about upgrading to 9.2 and positioning to continuous delivery. This session, as advertised, is all about 9.2. It's about your upgrade a project. Upgrades historically are quite difficult and challenging for people, so this is all about a 9.2 upgrade. And my intention really is to kind of bring everybody up to speed by initially talking just about 9.2 itself and what Oracle's been saying about 9.2 for over a year now, and to share with you some things that you might want to think about as you contemplate, plan, and execute your upgrade. So I'm going to dive right in. And as I say, my starting point is really Oracle and 9.2. And at Collaborate in 2017, so just over a year ago, Oracle made some significant announcements around 9.2, and they talked about continuous delivery, choice and control, and greater confidence. In respect to greater confidence, they announced that 9.2 may very well be the last major release ever made available, for the JDE Edwards EnterpriseOne product. But having said that, or whilst saying that, they wanted to make sure everybody understands that Oracle's commitment to Applications Unlimited and lifetime support, remain intact. So JDE Edwards and EnterpriseOne, is not the end of the road. It's just the change in the way the product's going to be looked after and evolved going forward. And in support of some of these other things that we'll talk about, they announced that Premier support is going to be extended along with extended support, and that means that as companies that are committed to and running EnterpriseOne, you can feel comfortable and confident that you can be on 9.2 and that 9.2 will be around and be looked after quite positively and proactively by Oracle until at least 2028. So that's a huge thing, and something that I think by now most people are probably aware of. But as I say, I think it's a good idea to kind of run through these as we position ourselves to spend a bit of time talking about the project. With JDE Edwards and EnterpriseOne, we've always had a lot of choice and control over what we do and when we do it. And Oracle have been trying and have been doing a pretty good job recently of introducing lots of tools and facilities, to help customers make decisions around ESUs and things like that and upgrades, and to make it a bit easier to understand what's coming, how what's coming is going to impact in their environments, and to run projects. So things like the simplified upgrade approach, things like object usage analysis, as a complement to Object Analyzer and things like that are all very, very helpful and are going to help customers stay on top of what Oracle's doing and take best advantage of what Oracle is doing from a tools release and from an application release perspective going forward. The biggest thing I think, that we tend to focus on, when we talk about 9.2 is this idea of continuous delivery. And this is the third thing that Oracle sort of featured when they made their announcements. 9.2, not to be followed by a release 9.3 means that you need to think about different ways to package and sell and deliver projects to the businesses that you guys serve. Oracle's thinking is that with continuous delivery, you can and they can, some eliminate some of the costs, and time and risk of taking on big upgrade projects. And with this change, their thinking, Oracle's thinking is that customers like yourselves, will be able to put in more and do more smaller incremental updates, and we'll talk about that a little bit as we get into the rest of this presentation. Oracle are settling into a pattern of whereby they're doing annual updates, and the last annual update was in October, November last year. So we can look forward to another annual update in about 6-8 months time, later this year. But alongside of those annual updates, they're releasing what they call feature packs. And this announcement in February of this year is a collection of features that they're making available. They talk about feature packs, but behind the scenes, we're still seeing the ESUs, the baseline ESUs, the TEALS releases, and all of that other sort of stuff under the covers. But continuous delivery, is all about, this more aggressive and trickling sort of stuff into your environments as quickly as possible, if that's possible. We're going to talk about the challenges associated with their delivery and adoption a little bit today, but I'm also doing a session next week where we really focus on continuous adoption and how continuous adoption can come into play. But as I say, this session is really all about 9.2 and upgrading to 9.2. And what Oracle's message is, I think is pretty clear. They're telling companies to get current, and be digital, and if you can't position yourself to be a more digital enterprise and to react and respond, to the, in the new economy, to new competitors and new ways of working, then you're going to be in trouble. And the best way to get yourself to that point is to get up to release 9.2 and then stay current. The subtext, and this is our take on, what's being said. The subtext is, think about running more, smaller, faster, and smarter projects. So that's a little bit about 9.2 and, my interpretation, DWS's interpretation of what Oracle is telling people about 9.2 and what it means to folks there. So our agenda for the balance of this session is to talk a little bit about upgrade planning, to talk about retrofitting, talk about testing, and to talk about a close and wrapping all of this stuff up. So that's where we're going, and the three areas that we're going to cover in addition to the close. What we're not going to cover are new features, functions, and capabilities, or the business case for introducing 9.2. This also is not about sort of a wider upgrade project. We're really looking at kind of the technical side of an upgrade. What happens to your code and your code base? Things like feature function capabilities, the wider business case, and the overall change project, are bigger than DWS, quite frankly. So we're not going to be getting into those sort of things. We're going to concentrate on what we know best. And as we talk about what we know best, we'll explain how DWS helps our customers address challenges in each one of the areas that we're going to be talking about. So let's get into planning and talk about planning, a technical upgrade. We're on a journey. JD Edwards has been around, for a long time, and EnterpriseOne has been around for a long time. And, every step of the way, it's been evolving and changing. And our individual implementations are constantly evolving and constantly changing. Historically, we've had to evolve, we've had to change because of release and support timelines, but release and support timelines are sort of going away, and what we're having to do and what we're able to do is changing, and it's going to require a different way of thinking and a different way of working. Ultimately, when we think about, an implementation or an instance of JD Edwards in a customer environment, what makes your instance difficult to look after and what makes an upgrade project challenging, is the fact that you've modified the software. And virtually every customer, that of JD Edwards that we know about, does have a modified footprint. And one of the things that we need to be thinking about, and we want to encourage people to think about as they contemplate and plan their upgrades, is addressing and doing the best they can to reduce the modified footprint. It's all about taking complexity and taking personal difference out of your implementation where and when you can. You guys have all modified software, modified the JD Edwards software for different reasons. You may have written, custom JD Edwards applications. You may have, pure custom code and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you've got that sort of stuff and you can kind of clean that stuff and make that stuff go away, you're going to be better off. And Oracle are doing a lot to try and help everyone do that as well with, the capabilities that they've been introducing, from a personalization framework perspective. And, there's an opportunity, for everyone to, as they do an upgrade, to challenge their modifications and to think about ways to get rid of the modified footprint, reduce that modified footprint. So what you need to do, if you think about your code base and modified code, is really analyze, understand, and challenge. Look for things within your code base that are obsolete, that don't have a place, in your next, in your environment when you're on 9.2. Everybody's got stuff that's been around for a long time that may not get used anymore, or they may have copies of standard programs, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of those that actually aren't really required, and you can end up with 1 or 2 copies as opposed to 8, 9, or 10. So there's a lot of stuff in customers' environments, that is obsolete. And, we challenge you, and, I think you need to challenge yourselves when you think about your upgrades to give some thought and consideration to how you're going to figure out what is obsolete, and to understand exactly what needs to be upgraded and why it needs to be upgraded. Certain things may not be obsolete, but they may not need to be upgraded. And if they're obsolete, or if they're not obsolete and they don't need to be upgraded, how are you going to address the same, business requirement and support the same business processes? That's something that, you need to really spend quite a bit of time and effort and energy on as you think about planning your upgrade. As you get down to an object level and you think about taking an object, from an older release up to 9.2, you need to really also look beyond just the object itself and, having the object at 9.2. The safest thing and the most intelligent thing to do with each and every object is to get inside of that object and try and figure out the best way to get that object, from an older release up into the latest release. You have to look at what you have and versus, and compare that to what Oracle is giving you. And then you need to decide, are you going to change what Oracle is giving you in order to make that object work in your environment at 9.2, or is it better for you to actually take your object at the old release level and have your developers work on that old object to bring that old object up to a level where it happily sits and works at a 9.2 release level? And that's something that, a lot of a lot of systems integrators and customers, don't spend a lot of time doing. And it can really change the quality of the final results, and it can change the amount of time and effort that's required, when bringing an object forward from one release to the 9.2 release level. You can really only understand how much, and a technical upgrade is going to cost if you get into a very, very low level of detail and really, really understand exactly what you're dealing with and what you're working with. Environments, and the objects that make up a modified footprint, include copies of JD Edwards objects, modified objects, pure custom objects, and custom objects as well. You need to classify, grade, and really understand what you're dealing with in order to come up with a budget and a cost for doing the technical project. And that's not always easy to do. So the cost is one issue that people have to wrestle with. The other thing that people must wrestle with, in the context of a wider plan as well, is where does the technical upgrade fit, and what is the timeline, for doing all of the technical work, and how does all of that technical work fit in the context of, the wider project and the wider program. So those are things I think that everyone should be considering, contemplating, giving some consideration to, as they get into the planning associated with their upgrades to 9.2. The DWS solution to the problem, the planning problem, is afforded in a service that we call Dimension Analyze. DWS has been around for 20 years. We're development and technical specialists really working only in the EnterpriseOne space. We have been designing and developing and, gathering our own intellectual property and reflecting that property in tools that we use to deliver services. And we've also, gone on to deliver some products as well. But the service offering that we have that helps people plan and upgrade is a service that we call Dimension Analyze. And the Dimension Analyze process really goes through 3 steps, whereby we identify very, very, in a very, very detailed way, every object, every line of code, every spec setting within an environment. And we do that by running some extract programs against customer environments. And then we take that extracted information and we analyze it using, as I say, tools software that we've created. And in analyzing, we're able to understand in detail what kind of object, or how to classify each and every object. And based on that classification, we're able to figure out the best way to do upgrades, the severity of the work, the change that's being introduced, and the type of change that's being introduced. And as a consequence, we're able to do a third and final step, which is come up with a very detailed and comprehensive object by object estimate of the time and effort that's required to bring an object from one release level up to the latest release level. Okay, so that's my little bit on planning. The next thing that I want to concentrate on and talk a little bit about is the retrofitting process itself. You're going to take a decision to do an upgrade. Part of the overall upgrade is going to be the technical upgrade. The technical upgrade, often referred to as retrofitting, is a significant project in its own right. And I want to concentrate on some of the subject, the topics and issues, related to this, this sub-project within a wider project. Clearly, the most important thing, is introducing 9-2 in a way that, you know, is as seamless as possible to the business. And that needs to be the focus. You know, there does need to be a wider project that's well crafted, well managed, and well orchestrated. And part of that wider project is the retrofitting project. And the retrofitting project is largely a technical project. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with looking for technical experts, you know, within your own organization, within the systems integrator community, to actually tackle, you know, that project or that part of the project as experts. You know, many of the big systems integrators will want to and can be everything to everybody, but not all of JD Edwards' customer base, you know, is able, willing, or interested in taking on a big systems integrator and working with a big systems integrator as part of their upgrade. You've all got your own skills, experience, and capabilities, but, you know, you should be willing and consider, you know, whether the technical side of a project is something that you might want to outsource. You know, it can easily be outsourced, and we'll talk about what that looks like and what you can get from you know, from somebody who specializes and delivers just on the technical side. The key thing, you know, is the delivery, you know, of you know, fully tested modified objects, you know, because it's the timely delivery of modified code, you know, into an overall project that's going to make the overall project successful. What are the things that you have to have? You need good, strong project management. Telling everybody how to suck eggs here. I think everybody knows that, you know, only a good project is going to be successful if you've got good management. You need a really established and practiced methodology. You know, there are, you know, there's, you know, every company comes with its own sort of ideas on how to run a project. And, you know, companies like DWS come to, you know, the party and know how to run a technical project, particularly a technical retrofitting project. But you need to be thinking about what, you know, what standards and what methodologies are you going to work to. There isn't a right or wrong answer, but you should be thinking about that going in. And you need to be thinking about where you're going to get, you know, skilled, experienced, and disciplined developers. Retrofitting is not the most exciting job, you know, quite frankly. And you know, in my years working with, you know, with JD Edwards customers, you know, it's not something that, you know, developers, you know, on a customer site can get that excited about. But, you know, so you may want to think about the developers you have and complementing, you know, the skills of the developers that you have with developers from outside, you know, that specialize in that, you know, that have tools that support, you know, the retrofitting job specifically. And, you know, the people that you employ, the way you get them to work, you know, the methodology and the practice that you adopt, you know, really needs to be complemented by, you know, and backed up by, you know, some rigorous, you know, quality assurance sorts of things. So I think these are things that are quite fundamental to staffing, running, managing, and delivering, you know, a quality technical project. So those are the things I think, you know, are essential and things that, you know, people might want to have their list, you know, on their list to refer to and think about as they start cast their eyes on the idea of running a 9.2 upgrade project. From a technical perspective, it's absolutely imperative, you know, if you're running a big upgrade, to think about some keys to success. The first one of those keys to success is bundling. If you've got a big implementation, you know, a wide footprint of functional capability, you're not going to be able to do everything all at once, you know, and your project may run, you know, 9, 12, 15 months, I mean, we hear about some very fast 9.2 upgrades, but we also, can point to many examples where a 9.2 upgrade, can take quite some time. And if you're taking quite some time, it's important to think about how you're going to deliver all of the work. And when you deliver technical work into a project, you want to make sure that each package stands on its own, and all of the objects in that package are actually usable when they're delivered. And that's something that we call bundling. And you can only bundle and sequence work if you really intimately understand the way all of the objects hang together and the interrelationships between all of the objects. There's data structures, there are business functions, there's all sorts of bits and pieces, that need to be changed, need to be brought forward from an old release into a new release. And if you're going to deliver something into a project as a deliverable into a project team, a wider project team, it's really, really important that you're giving people stuff that works. I've heard of many projects, where people have gone off and done retrofitting, and when the developers finish an object, they package that up and send that out, and it gets installed, and it's installed, but it doesn't work because other things that it relies on haven't been upgraded and brought forward and put into that environment yet. So bundling and sequence is absolutely key, and alongside bundling and sequencing is the quality assurance sort of thing. You should be, getting your developers to test everything, and immediately upon, install into, your CRP or development kind of environments, you should be doing some sort of testing to make sure that what you've been given is actually working as it's intended. So quality assurance needs to be baked into everything that you do, from a development perspective, and then also from a project team, project working perspective. And we'll come on that a bit more, because one of the things I wanted to talk about was testing as part of this upgrade project. The last thing in terms of key to success is progress monitoring. You need to keep close watch on who's doing what, where, when, and how things are moving through, according to the project plan. And you need to, with good proven technical project management, any issues need to be well managed, resolved, and plans need to be tailored and tuned. But you can only take advantage of good project management if you've got good project monitoring and you know exactly where things are. So from a technical perspective, you want to be thinking about all of those sorts of things. That's all I was going to talk about in terms of the retrofitting project itself. The DWS solution to the problem is what we call a Dimension Professional project. Out of our Dimension Analyze service, we help customers understand in a very detailed manner exactly what must be retrofitted and what it will take to do the retrofitting. We then can go on and propose a project, a fixed price, fixed timeline, well-planned project, where we will do all the retrofitting or some portion of the retrofitting for our customers. We do these projects all the time. We've done them for 20 some odd years or 20 years. And the vast majority of the time, because of the methodologies that we employ and the tools that we use in running these projects and the quality assurance regime that we have in place, we deliver customized objects, retrofitted objects with near zero defects. We've had projects without any errors in the past, and that's what we do. And So all of the things I talked about, can be catered for and covered, by service offerings of companies like DWS and perhaps even service offering of other systems integrators and consulting companies as well. Okay, so, we're talking about these upgrade projects, 9.2 upgrade projects. We're talking about how to do a 9.2 upgrade with a view towards being ready to take advantage of Oracle's continuous delivery. And when we talk about continuous delivery, I introduce this, the Oracle concept of get current, stay current, and, the DWS sort of smaller, faster, smarter project concept. And something that we feel very strongly about is, is the improvement and the opportunity to look at and think about the way you're going to improve your testing during your upgrade. Because if you're going to run more projects, after you have upgraded, you can and should probably start addressing and thinking about and solving, the testing problem right away. Because you need to be thinking about testing everything. When you do an upgrade, you are going to test everything. But, what exactly are you going to test? How are you going to test it? And when are you going to test it? Testing is huge. And when we put a spotlight on testing when talking to, to customers and prospective customers about their upgrades and about their code current strategies post-upgrade, everybody kind of accepts and understands that it's worth thinking about and it's a problem worth solving. I always chuckle when I show this slide because the only stats I could find on the internet related to software testing on projects is out of a study that was produced by the university, or Kathmandu University. So it just kind of makes me smile a little bit when I see that. But that idea that software testing amounts to something like 25 to 50% of a total cost of a project is not an idea that any customers or project managers I talk to sort of balk at. They kind of accept and understand that's probably not unreasonable. In fact, some JD Edwards customers have told me that they've had projects where testing in all of its forms, unit testing, system testing, integration testing, user acceptance testing, has formed as much as 65% of the total project. So, I'm encouraging you and suggesting to you that as you contemplate, your upgrade to 9.2, to think about and contemplate ways that you can improve the way you test and how you organize your testing. And we actually encourage automation of testing. And, DWS did some research a few years ago and decided that there really wasn't any JD Edwards EnterpriseOne testing specific products, that could really help most JD Edwards customers. So we actually wrote some products ourselves. And I'm going to show those to you very briefly here in a minute. But, testing is highly repetitive. And when you kick off a project, you're going to do, some test planning and preparation, and it's probably going to result in, a catalog of scripts, either in Word documents or in spreadsheets. And it'll probably end up result in a plan, where the plan's executed and the tests are actually executed and documented. And where you've got test problems and test issues, you're going to rerun those tests. And, if you're doing that manually, it is really labor intensive. It can be deeply flawed, because people tend to not like to do things that are repetitive and boring. So, this thing goes over and over and over again. And what happens when you introduce automated testing, and Swift Test, the product we have, is an example of that. But what happens when you introduce automated testing is you don't necessarily relieve the upfront burden, the burden of creating scripts and deciding what testing, you need to do in your environment. There is some overhead and some time that you need to invest in order to tackle the testing opportunity within an environment. But if you can tackle the testing opportunity with a view towards improving the way testing gets done on every single project going forward, and you take advantage of a tool that has, sufficient capabilities, features, and functions, everything can happen faster as you go forward. A test automation tool, when it runs a test, will self-document. And you'll not only run the test faster, but you'll produce a better set of documented results. And when you rerun tests, it'll happen faster. And as you plan and prepare the testing for your next project, you'll be able to go back to, the catalog of scripts that you've created to more quickly prepare a plan and to get ready to do the testing, and then to more quickly execute and re-execute all the tests that are required. So that's what, an automated testing kind of looks like and feels like from a conceptual perspective and from a value perspective. And what I thought I'd do now is just show you really quickly a Swift test video. This is going to run and silently, here for just a couple of minutes. But I wanted you guys to see that, a tool written specifically for EnterpriseOne, can be used by business analysts and super users. And if it's friendly enough and easy enough to be used by business analysts and super users, it's something that can be part of every single project. As part of a project, tests can be created and tests can be run. Here's just an example of a journal entry script being created. And what Swift test does is it gives the user an interface over on the right-hand side to actually instruct EnterpriseOne on what the user wants EnterpriseOne to be doing. And each and every step that the user creates over on the right-hand side results in EnterpriseOne actually performing those actions. And it takes a little while to get used to the interface, but we're actually driving EnterpriseOne from Swift test. And then once the test has been created, it's very easy to go back and run the test as a unit test, just testing a very specific function, or as part of a test queue, which replicates an end-to-end business process. So you can string these things together using dynamic data and soft coding to meet your testing requirements in the context of just about any project. So this is just an example of a script being built. And these videos, I'm going to show this video and another video. These videos are available on our YouTube channel and from our website, which I'll point to at the end of this session. From our website, you can go to the YouTube channel and you can watch a number of Swift test videos. You can see how to do different things within Swift test. And I'll encourage you guys to do that if you're interested in trying to understand how testing might be addressed in your environment. Now, something else that we always talk to people about, not just is the automation of the testing itself, but is is understanding what exactly should be tested. And Oracle ships stuff, comes in a box. You have to figure out what's in the box. You have to figure out what it means to you. DWS has written a product that helps people understand what Oracle is shipping. In addition to the Dimension Analyze service, we actually have a product that looks at change, whether it's ESUs or modifications that you might be making, and gives you a business perspective of what that change, what's in the box, what does it mean to you in your environment. And we go from a very high level, which is sort of depicted graphically here on the left, to a very low level on the right, where you can actually see the code and what the code looks like to you in your environment. I'm going to click here and run another video, just very quickly. This is another 1.5 minute sort of video that takes you into Focus. And what happens with Focus is you basically submit projects to DWS. DWS does some analysis on the ESU or on the modification that you're making in an environment. And it helps you understand exactly what that ESU means to you. This dashboard information is kind of telling you that there's a lot of stuff that Oracle's shipping that doesn't even need to be tested or you don't need to worry about. And one of the things that the DWS products do from a test planning and management perspective is they help you understand not only what testing you need to do, but where you need to go and actually to test what is changing, you know, with the implementation of change or with the implementation of an ESU. And here's a heat map that allows us to filter and interrogate all of the objects that are changing within your environment. And it helps you kind of select objects and plan who's going to be working on objects and who's going to be testing objects. And as you get into individual objects, an individual can look at that object, can drill into the object to understand exactly where they need to go within that object in terms of the forms, in terms of the controls that are on the forms, to test what has been changed. And that's what you're seeing here. You know, this is a change to purchase orders where there's 13 forms and 353 sections of code, but Focus has been able to determine that the change that's being introduced into your environment only requires you to go to, you know, one form or one program in 4 different forms. And if you go to one program in 4 different forms, you know, you can actually get to all of the code that's changed within that object. So that's a huge benefit. And something that, you know, you can start to think about as you look at the tools and the approach that you're going to take to your 9.2 upgrade. So I'm going to close now. With 9.2, you know, I'm encouraging you, and I think Oracle is encouraging you, to think differently. You know, 9.2 is not the same as every other upgrade that you've done. You know, 9.2 is and probably will be, you know, your last major upgrade. You know, there will not be a 9.3 unless something cataclysmic happens and, you know, the Oracle JDE Edwards team is sort of forced to create a 9.3. They've said very clearly that they have no plans, no intention to have a 9.3 unless something happens. So you need to think a little bit differently. You need to learn from the lessons that we've learned. We'll suggest, you know, that you might want to learn from the lessons that we've learned. You know, we think you should prioritize your technical upgrade. You should value your mods, but don't carry mods forward just for the sake of carrying mods forward. You know, you can eliminate, you know, as much as, you know, 45, 50, 60, 70, 80% of your modified footprint, you know, by really thoroughly analyzing and evaluating exactly what modified code you have and looking for opportunities to retire modifications, and we can help you do that. Bundle, sequence, and quality assure, you know, and test smart and test early. You want to test as early as possible. You want to get things into the wider project from a retrofitting and code perspective as early as possible. And if you're able to do this, you know, as you do your 9.2 upgrade, it sets the stage and starts you thinking about, you know, what's going to happen after 9.2. You know, what can you do whilst you're upgrading that sets the stage for you to provide the businesses you serve a better service? You know, not only how are you going to run your upgrade, but how are you going to run subsequent smaller, faster, and smarter projects? The idea is, you know, to transform your IT operations to be not just delivering upgrades, but delivering a more comprehensive and continuous service that takes advantage of all of Oracle's continuous delivery. At this point, I will invite and look for any questions in the chat panel. And if anybody would like to submit some questions, I suggest it might be an idea for us to do that now. Somebody's asked whether the Dimension Analyze service, is something that anyone, looking at EnterpriseOne upgrade to 9.2 can do? And, the answer is yes. You don't have to have taken any decisions on whether you're even going to upgrade or not, whether you want to outsource sort of the development and technical development of the retrofitting. The dimension analyze service stands on its own and, can result in people better understanding exactly what their upgrades and the technical part of their upgrades will be looking like. Does anybody else have any other questions? I think there's a question about Focus. The Focus product is really going to be used sort of at a tail end. It's asking how Focus gets used in the context of an upgrade. Focus will get used in the context of an upgrade sort of at the tail end. I think most of us have probably been involved in upgrades where in the final throes of an upgrade, somebody might say that, there are ESUs that need to be applied. And, you can use Focus to help you understand exactly what those ESUs mean, in the context of the project that you've been running to bring everybody up to speed. Focus is, sort of a limited use within the context of your upgrade itself. Unlike Swift Test is going to help you anytime you want to do testing on a project, any project, your upgrade project or subsequent ESU, change event projects and things like that. Hope that answers that question. Does anybody have anything else? I think that's it for now. So listen, it's 46 minutes past, so I've run over 1 minute over the appointed 45-minute timeline, but I will thank everyone for their participation. If there are any questions that just come in, I just see a question come in very late. I will answer that sort of offline because I don't want to keep everybody too long, and I'll send an email in response to the question that was just raised. If anybody has any questions, wants to speak to me further about what I've talked about, please get in touch with me. Don't hesitate to get in touch with me. It's Patrick Neary at DWS-global.com. Our phone numbers are down at the bottom. And you can give me a call. And as the host for the session said, we'll make sure everybody gets a copy of this the recorded webinar. And I'll thank you now for your time and attention. Appreciate you joining me today. And I wish you luck with any project, upgrade project that you might be thinking about or planning or executing. And I hope that some of the information we shared is going to be of value to you.